The TCG SCOOPS Show is part of the Booster Pack Network. For more TCG-related content, visit theboosterpacknetwork.com. Hosting for this show is sponsored by Category 1 Games, the go-to shop for all of your classic TCG needs. Find your favorites or discover something new at category1games.com.
And welcome to the very first episode of TCG Scoops. My name is Rands, and this is the show on the Booster Pack Network, where we're going to be sharing the news from the big three TCGs. Now, today, this is our first episode, and if you haven't actually seen our pilot episode, or episode 0, you can find that link in the description so you can learn who the people are with me today on the show. So, basically, let me give you an idea. My life is very busy, and what I've done is I've assembled a team of experts in the trading card games, the top 3 trading card games in my local area, and they're going to fill me in on the news so that I don't have to worry about looking it up myself. So, first and foremost, we have, like I said, the big 3 trading card games. There's Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And each one of those has an expert on the panel. So, let's throw it first to our Yu-Gi-Oh! Expert, that is
Parker.
And then our Magic expert,
Nico.
And our Pokemon expert, Tyler. Alright, so we've got Nico, Parker, Tyler here with us today, and they're going to tell us all about the greatest news coming from these greatest TCGs of all time. Alright, so before we jump in, again, remember, like, subscribe, follow this wherever you're following it, and I'll also make a special mention here. You can find us on social media, and even in our brand new Discord server. So let's jump into it. We're going to start with Magic today. I think Magic sounds like it's got a bit of a nice ring to it, so let's throw it to Nico. He's going to tell us what's going on in the world of Magic.
All right, World of Magic, here we go. So the big new set out right now is Dominaria Remastered. Dominaria Remastered set is a reprint set, all old cards in a new set, going to every single set that takes place in the world of Dominaria, which is kind of like Magic's core home world in a lot of ways. It's where it started. They still visit it all the time.
So what I'll do is, let's extrapolate a little bit there. So for those who don't know, maybe Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! Listeners, Magic, each set is set on a different world.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying then is their original world that they made years back in the 90s, 1993 probably, I think it's the original set, is all these cards, any set that has appeared on that world, which there has been many of the early ones and some recent ones, all the cards that are in this reprint set come from the sets from that world. So it's a flavorful sort of collection of cards.
Exactly, yeah, and it also spans over a lot of the history of the in-game story. You get newer characters, older characters, all sorts of fun stuff like that. So I want to get right into a lot of the big reprints in this set. There's a lot of reprints people are talking about, especially Force of Will. Mm-hmm. This card is hovering about $100 right now. Yeah.
Since the reprint?
The old ones are. I believe It's gone down to $80 for the newer ones.
Okay.
The card is expensive because it is a free counterspell that is playable in Magic's oldest, most powerful formats. Mm-hmm. Very, very strong card. You also have the entire cycle of the original Tutors, which 4 were in one set, another one was another.
So break down what Tutors means for me.
Tutors are cards that let you search for other cards from your deck.
That's not you Pokemon man?
Yep. Yeah.
Go on.
4 of them let you put one on top. The other one makes you discard a card at random after you get it into your hand. They're all super fun, all super great cards. Very popular in Commander, Legacy, all these things. So the set is a great draft format. I've played it. I really like it. Overall, I think it's a great set. And it feels much more like a 30th anniversary set than the actual 30th anniversary we got a couple months ago, especially considering the price. The price is not that much higher than your average booster pack, as opposed to $250 a pack like the last one.
So I will ask the listeners that you have no idea what we're talking about or are interested in our opinions on the 30th anniversary set, not just from a Magic perspective, but from other communities as well. Go check out that pilot episode, link in the description.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the big things with this set, though, was some people who were opening it, they did not quite get the rares that they were expecting from this set because there were leaked cards. The entire rare sheet of the next set was accidentally in some booster packs of this set.
Really? Wow.
Yes.
Okay, so the entire rare set of the next set, which I believe is Phyrexia.
All will be one.
All will be one. It was in the booster packs of Dominaria Remastered. Sorry, that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
That's like
I've heard of like hack jobs with printing, but nothing quite like that.
It is. It's insane that it happened.
Well, let's follow on from what we were talking about last time. Like, obviously, that is a indictment on how quick their product runs are coming together.
Yeah.
To the point where a card manufacturer, what I would assume was accidentally, and of course, in the world of leaks and online sort of things, we don't know exactly, what the truth is. But let's assume, the best from them. And that they have such a busy workload that the rare sheets from the following set, which is out, I assume, in a couple of weeks, is accidentally seeded into the booster packs of a reprint set of all things.
Yeah, it is very strange. I don't think anything like this has ever happened. There have been times where they have slid a couple cards from future sets in, somewhat, sometimes accidentally or whatever.
I've heard of it happened for Yu-Gi-Oh! A couple
Yeah.
times, but it's not very common that it does.
No. But anyway, let's get into this new set. Phyrexia All Be One, coming in a few weeks. At this point, the entire set is spoiled or leaked, either one. And it is quite the set. It is a return to the world of Mirrodin, now known as New Phyrexia, after a lot of Magic story nonsense happened. Pretty much every visit to this world has been ridiculously powerful. It's broken formats. This new one is looking like the most reasonable out of all of them, but still has a lot of very, very strong cards that people are on the lookout for. One of those big ones is the new Elish Norn card. She's kind of like the big bad, the leader of the Phyrexians, which are like, I don't know, evil robot flesh people.
Yeah, like sort of like a little bit of a hybrid between Freezer and like I don't know, like some sort of morphic sort of monster or some sort. Body horror type stuff.
Robot body horror
That's
type
what
stuff.
Pokemon needs more of. Body horror.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
Extra limb, the body horror.
Yeah. And this Elish Norn card is actually causing quite a bit of controversy, specifically in the format of Commander. Commander is a multiplayer, casual format where you play with a 100-card deck with one legendary creature as your commander. You can kind of play at any time as if they're in your hand, essentially. Now, Elish Norn's ability mainly shuts down your opponent's creatures from doing enter the battlefield effects and doubles your own enter the battlefield effects, which is strong. It's a very strong effect.
That sounds pretty wild.
It is somewhat wild, but there's lots of other cards that do these types of effects. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the head of the Commander Rules Committee wants this card banned before it even releases into the format.
So this is Sheldon Mariner?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've spoken to Sheldon before, and he's a really cool guy, and he basically imported the Commander format from his playgroup in Alaska.
Yes.
And he is basically the authority when it comes to Commander, which is Magic's most popular format.
Yeah. And his reason for this is that he doesn't want generically good cards in the format. A format where Soul Ring is played in every single deck. It is 1 mana and taps for 2 mana. It's a format staple. So there's been a lot of controversy with that. Otherwise, cool card. I think a lot of people are excited for it. I'm certainly going to be playing in my decks, banned or not, because I think it's fun. Other than that, lots of interesting cards. Sort of a new take on the Infect mechanic is coming back with Toxic. It's sort of a less strong version of Infect. Infect, for anyone who's wondering, is an ability that creatures can deal poison damage, and if you have 10 poison counters, you lose the game.
So each poison damage counts as 1 poison counter.
Exactly.
Rather than taking life. It's basically an alternative version of life.
An alternative version of life points where you count up to 10 instead of down from 20. Toxic is the new one. Instead, just adds 1 poison counter as well as combat damage. Very strong as well. I think it'll have a big impact on Standard. Potentially some of the cards are going to see some play in some older formats. We'll see about that. Other than that, super exciting set. I think Magic players are really looking forward to this one. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. It definitely looks like it's going to be an interesting set. And I just want to comment on something you mentioned before. You mentioned that each visit to this world, so
Yes.
as we mentioned, there's been multiple Magic worlds that are created for each set, and then sometimes they go back to the popular ones, and this is one of those.
Yeah.
Each one has been I'm sure TCG listeners will know the term broken, basically means that they're format dominating experience. And if I remember correctly, Mirrodin is a set based around the card type artifacts.
Yes.
So hence the robot, of what you were mentioning before.
Yeah.
But its first visit was a little bit, because artifacts in that time were colorless, which means you could play them for any color. I'm sure Pokemon players certainly know what colorless means. So basically any sort of energy can sort of fuel them, or mana in this case. And that was a problem because basically you could have so many artifacts in any type of deck.
Yeah.
When we went to this is the third visit, so when we went to the second visit was when it went from Mirrodin to New Phyrexia. my understanding is that it was a problem because of that poison counter thing, the infect.
That, but more importantly, Phyrexian mana, which is
right.
the change of some cards have Phyrexian mana, where instead of paying a mana cost, you could also choose to pay 2 life, which means the card is free.
Yeah.
Because your life total does not matter.
Yeah.
Cards like Gataxian Probe, where you pay 2 life to look at your opponent's hand and draw a card. It means you get to play a 56 card deck. You get get to look at your opponent's hand at any time. Ridiculously powerful cards. Lots of great Phyrexian mana cards. This new one does have Phyrexian mana, but it is used as part of a cost for a card, so you're not paying the full cost with just life points, or it's part of an activated ability of a card.
Well, that's nice. It's something they kind of braided it a little.
They brought it in because people do enjoy playing with it. I do too. It's very fun. But they made it, at a decent power level that I think a lot of the cards will see play.
So that's an interesting point, only because you mentioned it in there, Tyler. But could you imagine if there was a Pokemon attack that said no energy, but discard a prize? Your opponent discards a prize card, I guess it would be the balance in that regard. Could you imagine the impact on the format?
Yeah, that would be insane. I mean, there are some free attacks in Pokemon. A couple cards. Most of them are relatively low impact. Like there's some there's a Alolan Vulpix. You can search your deck for a basic Pokemon. It also ends your turn, so you can play it to the bench. But nothing quite as insane as you just lose a prize card.
Yeah, exactly. Because I guess in Pokemon, prize cards are your life points. So.
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah. It's just an interesting little thought crafting thing. Could you imagine, it doesn't cost anything, but it's a 200 HP damage attack, but your opponent gets to take a prize card as well. So that interesting design space. Anyway.
One last thing with the Phyrexian set is there are 10 Planeswalkers in the set. For people that don't know, Planeswalkers are kind of like the main characters of Magic. They're like superheroes, and they get to travel between the worlds. Now, of these 10, 5 of them have been completed, which is what the Phyrexians call, turning them into Phyrexians. They're evil versions of themselves now.
Okay, so they're kind of like the Strahd from Unreal Tournament.
Sure.
You never played that?
I don't know.
Okay, so I want to go. How would we know what that kind of
If you played Unreal Tournament, you'll get that. If Tyler just makes something up,
Yeah, so even the face of Magic for a long time, Jace, it has been completed. Jace is now evil. Nissa now has robot arms and is also evil. A bunch of the characters have been evil. They kind of revealed all the Planeswalkers who were going to be in the set, and then later on revealed which ones got completed. So, pretty interesting story. Shows that they're not afraid to kill off main characters, which was a big criticism of War of the Spark, their last huge story arc, where there was kind of no consequences to all of the war that happened.
So let me ask you this: do you see Magic's narrative going in the way of some comic books, where they can kill off characters and revive them in Superman, the death of Superman, Superman Returns in a way? Those that have seen in comic books over the last couple of years.
They may be able to come back, and I think some of them, Nahiri has swords for arms now. It's going to be hard for her to live her life, even if she does come back, because she doesn't have hands anymore.
Can't pick things
Exactly. Up. Jace looks pretty unscathed, though, so I imagine he could get out of it. But I imagine what we'll see is a lot of these characters sort of returning as villains in the future, perhaps.
Okay.
After the Phyrexians are kind of wiped out, there may be a few stragglers who kind of stick around, and those might be the Planeswalkers, since they are able to travel between the planes.
Absolutely.
It's an interesting take on it.
Yeah, it is a really interesting take. And I also think that the interesting thing as well is, obviously, Magic is such a fluid game that you could mechanically tie in, there's a cure mechanic or something like that.
Exactly.
That ties in.
And there is sort of a hint at a cure right now with Halo in the story that can cure it if it's early on, but they're not sure, and bunch of things are happening in the story. I don't really have time to get into all that.
You're learning 500 cards that release every month.
Exactly, yeah. I'm a little overwhelmed with that. And that's sort of all I have about the new Phyrexia set. Comes out in early February. Based on it, looks like a really fun sort of limited format. I like those types of formats where there's a lot of very strong uncommons, it's looking like.
Okay.
And that's all I have for Magic this month.
Okay, well, another thing I learned recently about Magic is that they have actually changed the way that they do pre-releases as well.
Yes.
So they've done something interesting where, and this is basically eschewing 20 years of history. They've taken the idea for this set, I think is the first one.
Yes.
Where basically once a pre-release happens, the set is out.
Yes.
There's no pre-release and then this pseudo and almost unnecessary waiting period until the cards become legal.
Exactly.
I think that's interesting to talk to. Do you have any interesting thoughts on that?
I think generally it makes sense. Especially like when you're taking like online into consideration too. Like there's kind of no reason to just have people wait a week. You know what I mean? The cards have already been all revealed. Everyone kind of has theory crafted what the meta is, and I think it just moves things along faster.
Absolutely. Well, do you guys from Yu-Gi-Oh! Pokemon Worlds, do you guys still have the pre-release that is still then a week or so before the actual release?
Exactly, and even for Pokemon, once the official release comes out, typically cards aren't legal in tournament play for a little bit.
Okay.
Like Crown Zenith is currently out, but I don't believe it was legal until. It wasn't illegal until at least a week later. It just to prevent it from impacting any regionals or anything that may be coming up. I think.
I guess so. Yeah, you don't want to sort of pull the rug, but obviously Magic's not too concerned with their standard format at the moment. But obviously,
that's all we have this far.
I'd say another big reason is that just the slow move away from a lot of players from 60 card formats into casual formats like Commander. There's no reason to wait a week in Commander. Some people think they need rules for Commander like that, and I think it just kind of does away with that. That's my opinion, though.
Do you have any thoughts on it, Parker? As far as like a pre-release versus like actual release date, like does Yu-Gi-Oh have like a pre-release date and then an actual release date that sort of impacts the meta?
I don't feel like there's really a pre-release date. There's more like there's a release date, and then sometimes we can get the cards a little bit early, but they're still not like available, like legal for play until the actual release date. But yeah, not a whole lot of that.
Okay, cool. So that's all you had for Magic, was it?
Yeah, that's all there was this month. It was a slower month compared to the last few even.
Well, for those who might have caught us on our pilot episode, it was a heavy month for Magic.
Yeah.
I think we did like 50 minutes on Magic alone because, things like the 30th anniversary edition had come out. We were also dealing with everything else that was going on in the Magic space at the time and so much change and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is, if that's the case, I'm going to swing over to Parker. You can tell us all about what's going on in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh!
All right. Well, speaking of what you talked about last week, I have there's something that's kind of similar that I think we can talk about for a bit. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Announced a Legendary Collection 25th Anniversary Edition. So Magic, they had the 30th anniversary, and it was charged a super high amount of money. But what Yu-Gi-Oh! Is doing is instead of 4 packs of like old cards that you can't even play in tournaments.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is 6 packs, the first 6 sets of Yu-Gi-Oh! And
so that's so for Yu-Gi-Oh! Devotees, that's Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon through to
Invasion of Chaos.
Invasion of Chaos, so classic sets.
Yeah, and then they also get some just like iconic cards like Obelisk the Tormentor, Slifer the Sky Dragon, Winged Dragon of Ra, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Dark Magician, and Red Eyes Black Dragon. And then you also get like a new rarity of one of those cards that's like random. And what do you guys think the price point is for this kind of thing?
Considering the last one was $1,000, let's start the bidding there and go down.
I remember hearing some people talking about this actually, specifically comparing it to the Magic thing. If I'm mistaken, it's around $40 about.
I have MSRP $31.99.
Okay,
yeah, so I think that's close. That's reasonable.
I mean, that's sort of in the like sort of Pokemon sort of celebrations.
Even Crown Zenith currently is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just speak to reprint sets though. Cards. Yeah.
And are these tournament legal?
Yes.
Okay.
I was about to ask, because Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like an eternal format. There is no divisions amongst formats, right?
No, like rotation or anything like that. Yeah.
Interesting. So, I mean, I guess my question then is, so obviously Yu-Gi-Oh! Players are buying into this. It's not a limitation on anything. How does the community feel about this new set? Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Has never been restricted with their reprints like Magic does, where they have a specific policy that says we're not reprinting these special old cards. So I assume that the community is very excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, a lot of people know about what happened with Magic, so I think comparatively they're just like, woo! I mean, it's so much better. This is way better.
Do you think the product is reactionary?
It could be, yeah. I don't know if they would have done something so ballsy as charging $1,000 for 4 packs before this, but I think maybe they saw it and maybe adjusted a little couple things so that they could get it like a super positive reaction and everything.
So the product isn't something that already existed in Japan, right?
No.
So is it possible that this product was formulated and designed for the mere purpose of being a reaction to Magic 30?
Yeah, it's possible for sure. It's only coming out in April, so it's not out yet.
And what's the anniversary? Did you say 25th anniversary?
25th anniversary.
Oh, I guess because the original manga started in. Those dates don't add up.
It could just be a 25th anniversary of the Legendary Collection or something like that.
Interesting, because I mean, obviously the original was 96, so not quite 25 years. Anyway, we're getting into the weeds now. But yeah, go on. So what else have you got?
So we just had a couple new sets come out, but one of them, it didn't really do a whole lot. There's like some new archetypes, but they're not very powerful, so they don't stand up to tier elements, which, as we talked about last time, is tier 0 and still is tier 0, unfortunately. And it's actually getting new support in the next main set.
Oh no!
Yeah.
But
So actually, let's talk about tier 0 for a second, because I actually overheard today. I was in the store. We do record it and mentions the intro that we do record EM cards and collectibles on Prince Edward Island live. Not live, but like in on location. And I want to talk to that because I actually overheard someone to say to a Magic player today that Yu-Gi-Oh isn't very fun. Do you think why do you think a player would express that? At the moment, they said at the moment Yu-Gi-Oh isn't very fun.
I feel like it's probably just the power level difference. If somebody has a full power tier elements deck, and someone you're playing against does not, they are not going to have a very fun time. They do not have a lot of interaction towards them unless they're completely floodgating them, and even then, the tier elements player can usually have some kind of answer to what they're trying to do.
Okay.
So tier elements is just that much more powerful than everybody or every other deck, so it just feels like it's kind of unfair. Like they're a little bit too strong compared to everything else in the format.
Do you ever take?
I was gonna say so it's like tier 0, but is there like a big gap between like 0 and 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, the only decks that can kind of compete with it are decks that can floodgate it out of the graveyard, like stop it from using its graveyard completely. And there's not a whole lot of decks doing that, but the next set is going to pretty much release the Kashtira strategy, which can do that, stop people from using the graveyard. But I don't think it's still like 100% answer to tier elements. I think tier elements can still win. It's just we have another deck that you can play into it, basically.
Okay, we'll have to see how the meta shakes out. And the thing that I think is interesting, especially coming off the Magic conversation, is do you think this is the weakness of Yu-Gi-Oh's design that it doesn't really have like a sort of a color system, so that every archetype can sort of basically do whatever it sort of wants if the designers feel to give that archetype the sort of the leg room to do it. It can do draw, it can do discard, it can do graveyard interaction, it can do revival and stuff like that. How do you feel, and Nico, I would love to get your opinion on this, how do you feel that is impacts Yu-Gi-Oh in comparison to sort of a Magic sense?
Like a color system? Or
Yeah, like a color system. Yeah. So for example, if light cards could only be the only ones that drew cards, or if dark cards were the only ones that played in the graveyard, like, do you think that Yu-Gi-Oh's design is innately hindered by the fact that it doesn't have some sort of factioning outside of its archetypes?
Well, I will say that there is a little bit of that because usually light and dark attributes are the strongest in the game. So there's a lot of really powerful cards that interact with light and dark types. Like there's a whole new archetype called the Bestials, who are basically all hand traps that interact with light and dark monsters in either graveyard. And they're one of the only like answers you can have to the tier element deck, because the whole tier element deck is pretty much dark type. So if you can, it banishes a card from the graveyard to summon it. So if they have a triggering effect in the graveyard, you can chain this Bestial monster to banish it, so then it doesn't get its effect. So you can do things like that.
Interesting.
That's mostly just like light and dark stuff. The other like attributes aren't usually as powerful, but some of them are really good too. It's hard to do that kind of stuff with like attributes. Some like cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, they just go off by like the name, like the archetype name. Like you can only do this with like a Scareclaw card. You can only do this with like a Sword Soul card, or like they lock you out of summoning other cards. You can only summon from that archetype, stuff like that. But yeah, I feel like it would be hard to do attributes because there's some decks that try to run all the attributes, and there's a certain deck called Plunder Patrol, which they kind of want your opponent. They can basically do stuff based on what attributes your opponent plays, and so like if they're playing a water deck, you can summon a special water monster, or you can summon a dark monster if they're playing dark monsters and stuff like that. So you can definitely do stuff like that, but they kind of mix them up lately.
It's so
Couple different
interesting.
attributes.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, for example, like if those water creatures were the only ones that could do, multiple creature summoning or something like that. Like in Magic, obviously, multiple creature, tokens, I guess, is a white thing, or or a green thing, or something like that. It's interesting to not have that factioning. And now, obviously, Yu-Gi-Oh was based on Magic the Gathering, as far as the original comic book installment when it was Duel Masters, or back when it was Magic and Wizards. It's just so fascinating to think about those sort of things. But I will let you get back to the news as we theory craft,
There's other
various
things too.
games.
I'm just wondering too myself, does Yu-Gi-Oh have a way to punish people for going all in on like a bunch of different effects?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's one card I'll bring up because it's the first one that pops to my mind. It's called Nibiru, the Primal Being. And every time, if your opponent summons 5 monsters on their turn,
Right.
in one turn, you can activate this card, and it'll send every monster on the field to the graveyard.
Oh, okay.
And it'll
Right.
give them a token
Mhm.
with the amount of attack and defense of all the monsters that were on the field. So
Right.
if they summon 5 monsters, you activate Nibiru, you give them a token in defense mode so they can't attack with it,
Okay.
and you get to summon the Nibiru on your side. That usually is just like a turn ender, and they'll just pass,
Right.
and then you'll do some kind of effect to just pop the token.
Okay.
So
Right.
there is ways to do that, but
Mm.
sometimes decks can just set up a negate and negate the Nibiru.
Right, okay.
So like, it's not guaranteed.
In Magic, if you do choose to sort of go with all like 5 colors, 4 colors, and try to play a bit of everything to get ahead of everything, you will get punished by cards like Blood Moon, which will turn off all your non-basic lands and make them just make red. So I'd imagine sort of a similar type of thing where that if you try to do everything, there are people who are out there to stop you from doing everything. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, the interesting point I want to jump on here is obviously in Magic, counterplay is a uniquely blue strategy.
Mhm.
Mostly, like there's some outliers there.
Some colorless.
There's some colorless counterplays and stuff like that. But in Yu-Gi-Oh, counterplay, because there is no color system, is just innate to the game. So every deck needs to be built with negates in mind, or Magic Jammer, or whatever it is. Any of those sort of off. Just basically offsetting cards. Whether it's a trap card or something like that. Back in my day, it was Mirror Force and Trap Hole and all that sort of stuff as well. Like, you've got to build every deck, regardless of any tier, with those sort of counterplays in mind. So it's interesting that a Yu-Gi-Oh player always has to be thinking about counterplays, whereas if in Magic, if you're a green player, you're not thinking about counterplays, you're just thinking about trampling.
Yeah. There's a lot of like hand traps in the deck that like mostly any deck can play. So like usually you just have to keep in mind what are the popular hand traps of the format, and then you try to play around those hand traps. Like I was talking about the Distios. Another really popular one is Ash Blossom, Joyous Spring. It just negates like a special summon or like a search or something like that. And then there's also like Infinite Impermanence, which just negates the effect of a monster, stuff like that. So there's usually just like certain hand traps that you got to play around.
Okay. All right. So what else have we got for news?
All right. So we have some some different sets coming out. We're getting a new tournament pack soon. There's been some leaks about that. I guess we can talk about that.
What's it now? Because I don't think these other 2 games have what's dubbed a tournament pack. What makes a tournament pack a tournament pack? Like, how is it different from a booster pack?
So it is a pack that you just get for entering in tournaments, and I think you can get them for buying a certain amount of packs as well. So they're all reprints. The whole pack is reprints, and there's also like different rarities usually of what the card was originally printed as. And they also have collector's rares, so it's like a special rarity. They're like really like hard to get. Like they're like low chance of getting them, and they look really nice too. So that's usually what people are chasing for, the collector's rares. But sometimes there are some good reprints that people want.
Yeah, Pokemon started doing something kind of similar, I suppose. Like, they're just sets, the prize packs. They started giving them out to like local stores for for participation, people who show up for events, and it's all. There's nothing like new specific to these packs, so they're all just general reprints of usable cards for players, and some of them have hollows that didn't originally have hollows, but they all have a special stamp on them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of somewhere now.
Magic has the same idea as well. Yeah, they have.
Is that the Judge promos, do you mean, or is it
No, they have.
different?
They're prize packs you can get for entering in-person events. They have like usually, I think 3 cards in them, and they have a little silver stamp on them with
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
little promo packs. Yeah.
3 packs. There's 3
Yeah.
cards in the pack. I have gotten a pack before that had 7 cards in it. It's supposed to be 3, but I got 7 in one pack.
Like a manufacturer you're in?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, sweet. All right. Well, Talk about God packs.
Yeah.
They're ripping you guys up. Pokemon, I think they're 5 card packs.
Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, one's an energy, but it's still 4.
Basic energy.
There is some basic ones. They're all pretty much basic, but there's some hollow ones that were
Okay.
so you can still get something fancy.
That's nice. Yeah. All right. So back to Pokemon
So
news.
we're getting a new structure deck coming out in February called the Trap Trick structure deck. I think it should be all right. It's not going to be like a super meta contender, but I can definitely see a lot of people playing it at locals and stuff. And then we're getting the new set as well, Photon Hypernova. And as I mentioned before, we're getting Tearlament support, unfortunately. And we're also getting more Kashtira cards, which is very fitting for the name because they're all high rarity and it is very expensive to build that deck.
Oh, yeah. It's a capital CASH.
Yeah. There was already expensive before. Like one of the cards from the previous set, the Kashtiras, it's like $90 right now for a copy. And you need 3 of them for this new full deck. And then all these new cards that they're coming out are all like really high rarity, so it's going to be a super expensive deck. We're also getting so in Yu-Gi-Oh! We get all the reveals in the sets in like Japan, so we get to see all the cards early.
Mm-hmm.
But in this release of this one, we're getting a new TCG exclusive archetype, so it's only coming to the TCG for now.
Okay, so
we'll get them later.
Yeah, so let's break that down. So for new listeners to the show, obviously this is episode 1. So TCG and OCG are different terms in Yu-Gi-Oh! Do you want to just break that down for us very quickly?
So basically, the TCG is the format that the Americans and Europeans use, and basically we get the cards like months after the OCG. The OCG is usually with Japan and areas around there, like the Asian community, what they use for a rule list. They have different ban lists, they have different card lists because OCG gets them all sooner. And it's basically the difference. And then also Master Duel has a different ban list as well. They're more similar to the OCG than the TCG, but it's different from both of them as well.
So it's so interesting just to hear those acronyms used differently, because obviously everybody would think that TCG just basically implies the trading card game, but in the Yu-Gi-Oh! World, it specifically means like the English language version. And I think that was more significant way back when there was certain cards that weren't being released in English, but now basically we're getting everything. Is my understanding. We're getting basically the cadence of the Japanese releases, but just in a different sort of packaging.
Yeah.
But back in 2002 or 2004 or whatever, you would have the Americans sort of being a little bit like Upper Deck at the time. Was being a little bit more controlling about what got released, what didn't get released, and that was the cause for that sort of schism.
Yeah. So it is really nice that we're getting like a TCG exclusive archetype this time, because they haven't really been like super powerful in the past, but this one's going to be exciting because I already have plans for it with some of my decks that I have already built, so I'm excited for that. So the new archetype is called Gold Pride, but I already have some plans for it. I'll mention that later, though.
In the later segment. Now, I do want to ask something about what you mentioned before about structure decks. And I think that's important to sort of lean on for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because unlike, Magic or Pokemon, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Yu-Gi-Oh! Structure decks are unique cards in a lot of cases. Like there's cards, or at least there is cards in that set, the chaser ones, that are only available in those sort of, pre-constructed sort of, for another game, like Pokemon or Magic, you would call theme decks.
Yeah, so usually there's about 5 new cards for the archetype that the structure deck is for, and then they'll have a bunch of reprints they won't give you like every reprint from the archetype, but they'll give you a good amount of them, and then they'll give you some staples too. Like there's some good cards that are coming out here that I've heard as well from this new structure deck that I'm kind of excited for because I could use a couple of them. And yeah. That's pretty much all I have for Yu-Gi-Oh! This week, though.
Okay, this month? Alright, so that's Yu-Gi-Oh! For this month. Alright, so it sounds like there's a lot of excitement, especially there's a lot less drama than episode 0 that we had for the last time.
Yeah.
Tier 0, no pun intended, was definitely taking over. Obviously we had Magic 30. But let's swing over to what's going on in the world of Pokemon. So Tyler, tell us, what is happening in Pokemon this month?
Well, in Pokemon, the big things that happened this month is Crown Zenith is officially come out. It's more of a collector set, special set. You can't buy the packs individually. They come in special pre-made products, so you have to buy to get them. It's mostly, there are some playable cards in terms of like a competitive sense, but it's mostly just really, really beautiful like gallery arts. I brought a visual reference for the individuals here at home. I do recommend you look into them yourself. But
yeah, there's the player guide that comes in the I guess like the bundle.
Yeah, if you buy on the Elite Trainer box is what they call that. It comes with like basic energies. It comes with the packs. It comes with just generally useful things. But it comes with a book. It has everything in it. I do recommend looking it up. There is some absolutely stunning cards. One of my personal favorites is Drake V. It has there's an artist in the Pokemon card game named Yuka Mori, and she makes cards makes art out of clay models, and this takes photographs.
Oh yes, I've seen that before. Yeah.
So lots of stuff like that. Let's see. But as I said, there is definitely some playable cards there. There's a Zamazenta basic card that has a pretty big revenge attack, and for those who aren't familiar, when Pokemon gets knocked out, the attack will just do more damage, effectively.
Okay.
Right? So it's good, you have a backup, something major gets knocked out, this thing comes up and sweeps up.
Okay, interesting.
Let's see.
In a lot of ways, with the very beautiful reprints and special versions of older cards that we're getting, it's kind of similar to Dominaria Remastered, where they're getting a lot of reprints, like nice full art pictures done by classic Magic artists that a lot of people are opening packs for.
Yeah, I've definitely seen like this Inventors art and some of the earlier sets, and like obviously Phil Folio comes out, Phil Folio came back for I think that was
Chaos Warp and Double Masters.
Warp.
Yes,
there was so much beautiful stuff there. Absolutely.
Amazing artwork coming out of these new sets.
I think Magic is learning from Pokemon.
Yeah,
Pokemon
absolutely.
Has been the leader in the sort of like in the big three TCG space, which is what we're talking about today. The big three TCG space, Magic is sort of learning from Pokemon. Sort of, like you can get a great ball that is an absolutely common card that's in every theme deck, but it's beautiful, it's gorgeous and stuff like that, and it has an incredible market value. And people want to put it in their deck.
Oh, exactly. Like even in Crown's End, there's some basic reprints that are just useful, like Ultra Ball. Recently got a reprint, and I believe it was Brilliant Stars. But now they printed it again, so it's more accessible. It also has a really nice art as well. Another big card it's called Radiant Eternatus, and this thing actually may have some meta implications. So how that works is when you play it from your hand, you search your deck for 2 VMAX. For those who aren't familiar, these are big, hard-hitting Pokemon with a lot of life. So you play this Radiant Eternatus from your deck, you search your deck for 2 VMAX, and you put them on your bench at end of turn. So you just immediately get set up in that sense.
Wow. Do you think that mechanically is intentionally because they want to speed games up as far as things go? Because obviously pulling out VMAXs and putting them immediately on the bench is going to impact the speed of a game considerably.
Oh, for sure. It definitely will. Some things though to keep in mind is always since it ends your turn, you can't attach energy to them. So there is some limitations to it. I don't think it's going to be broken or a tier 0 mechanic or anything like that, but it is something to keep in mind.
Okay. And what card type is the one that you mentioned? Supporter?
It's a Pokemon. It's called Radiant Eternatus. The Radiant cards, if you're not familiar with them, are you can only put 1 Radiant Pokemon, 1 copy of it in your deck.
Okay. Alright, so it's sort of like so
like the Ace specs back in the day.
Ace specs back in the day. Prism Star, did that do a
Prism? I think Prism Star was one of them as well.
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, interesting. I do like this. For the big 3 conversation, I do like this limit 1 per deck sort of thing. However, the weakness there, I believe, is that whoever draws theirs first is going to be at a significant advantage in a meta that focuses around them.
Oh, for sure. The nice thing is most of them take on more of a supporting role. There's none that you put down and just wins you the game. Like one of the strongest ones at the moment is Radiant Greninja, and really the only reason you play it is for the ability. You discard an energy from your hand, you draw 2 cards.
Okay, interesting.
Right, so it adds on to additional draw. Pokemon's also a very draw-heavy game in general, so those 2 cards aren't usually game-breaking, but it does help smooth out things, adds consistency to the decks that didn't have it before. I really like the Radiant cards. I think they did a great change.
Okay, fantastic. When did they get introduced?
I believe that was also Brilliant Stars was the first one. I don't remember exactly. They are a very recent mechanic, though.
So I'm going to let you go on, and I'll ask a follow-up question about Radiance later.
All right, sure. So other things as well. Another card is called Sky Seal Stone. This is a tool card. Those who aren't familiar with tool cards in Pokemon, these are items that you attach to your Pokemon. and they have various effects.
Attachments or equip cards for Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh! Respectively.
Exactly. And so how this one works is if you attach, so it needs to be attached to a Pokemon V. It has a V-Star power. For those who aren't familiar, it's a once per turn ability. You can just kind of pop it. You can't use it for the rest of the game, but generally very powerful effects. Typically, they are on V-Star Pokemon, but they've introduced these new items that also have them. Sky Seal Stone is the most recent one. And how it works is if you pop it on that turn, and you knock out a V Pokemon that includes V Max, V Stars, you take an additional prize card. So V Maxes, which are right now are worth 3, suddenly that's 4. That can really speed up a game because now.
What is the prize? How many prizes?
So you have 6 prize cards in Pokemon, and once you take all 6, you win.
So in this case, 4 would basically consume 1, and then the second VMAX would definitely.
So exactly. So if you took 4 off of VMAX and they have a basic V on their bench that hasn't evolved yet, or some of the more supportive Vs like Crobat V, just you play it to draw cards and it doesn't really attack most of the time, suddenly that thing is a massive liability because you can just end the game off that. They already are liabilities, but this really expedites that.
Interesting. It's really interesting. I think what Pokemon has unique about it for these other ones is it does consider the way that its rule structure is through the prize card system as a commodity that they can leverage mechanically to speed up games.
Exactly.
Yes. But I'll let you get on with the details.
So that's pretty much it for Crown Zenith. Again, just mostly really, really nice art. A couple cards that are interesting, but it's not that big of a meta swing by any means. Other big news is that Scarlet and Violet isn't out yet, but we have official full list of cards for it. That comes out in March.
And how are you feeling about that?
I'm really excited about it. It seems, I don't think it's going to have a huge meta impact at first. The cards don't seem like they're that powerful, but I think they're trying to rein it in a little bit because the VMAXs, for anyone familiar with the card game, are very, very strong cards. Massive attacks, massive life. Just very, very powerful, and it seems like they're trying to rein in that power level a bit. So this rotation, we may not see a huge impact, but then the next one, when it's only Scarlet and Violet, I think there will be huge implications for the game.
Interesting to say that, because obviously, to my point before, we were talking about how it seemed mechanically like the Pokemon Company was trying to speed up the game in that sense, and now they've sort of throttled it back a little bit.
Exactly. The whole Sword and Shield block really picked up the pace of the game. And now it seems like some of the players aren't happy about that. Some people are. It's nice in the tournament setting because games go by fast. But most people want to sit down and have a game of Pokemon that lasts more than 2 turns. 2 or 3 turns. So I think it's a positive change. I hope they stick to it and they don't just say, oh, we're bringing it back in and immediately go into it again, because that is definitely something that could happen.
So interestingly enough, okay, so V-Star. So the thing about the Pokemon Cadence release is that there's always a big whether it's GX or whatever.
GX, EX.
Yeah, exactly. Like some sort of super shiny, sort of real impactful Pokemon that sort of breaks the mold of what else is going on in the format. When it comes to Scarlet and Violet, is there what is that format's sort of version of the V?
Their version is EX, which they have done before. I think this time it's all lowercase, so that makes it different.
Same letters.
Same letters, so capitalization's different.
Exactly.
So.
What's the eBay listings? You don't want to buy the wrong one.
Exactly. But yeah, they're going with EX again. Fundamentally, the big change is, so Vs, they start off as the V. They start off as a 2 prize Pokemon, and then they evolve into either a V Max or a V Star if they evolve. The EXs all start off as just the basic, normal Pokemon cards, unless they are an EX basic. So that also has huge implication, because right now, for example, if you're playing a deck that is runs V Pokemon, you put 2 down on your first turn, and then the second turn, your opponent knocks 1 out. You're down 2 prize cards, or they're 2 prize cards ahead of you right out the gate. Now, if that happened, you have this basic Pokemon, and you lose 1. Well, they only take 1. That's not that big of a deal. They still take 5 more, right? So really, that also will slow down the game a fair bit, I think.
Interesting.
But other than that, I won't get too deep into the set because we want to save some news for March. But there's some really interesting cards, and I have high hopes for the future of Pokemon at this point.
Okay, fantastic. It's good to hear that coming out of it. I do feel like today's episode is a little bit more of a tenor of optimism escapism than it was the last
Yeah,
one.
absolutely, yeah.
There's a little bit more of like, okay, well, we've gone through the churn in 2022. We're coming into 2023, and there's some things that are definitely changing. So I can't wait to sort of see what is on the horizon for these games and how, the things we've spoken to today have impacted the way that the games that we play and love actually end up getting changed or not changed at all. I mean, obviously, Pokemon's going through a huge change with a complete rotation, which doesn't happen all of the time.
Yeah, this one was actually heavily delayed. Normally we get rotation, I believe it's once a year, and before it was in September. And this year they pushed it until March.
Yeah, and then in Magic, rotation, which is a standard format, which is a seldom played format nowadays.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. How often does that happen typically? I think that's quarterly, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
but no one plays standard here, so I don't know.
Yeah, Parker's
It
like,
is.
wow, in this game, he's like, they throw something on a ban list every so
I don't
often,
know.
and I can have whatever I want.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing to me. Like, Magic has like committees dedicated to the health of certain formats.
Yeah.
Pokemon, they don't care about the other one. It's not standard, they don't care.
Yeah, exactly. And it'd be interesting to see how that evolves. And obviously, we talked about things like tournament packs. Obviously, all three games mentioned the fact that they had tournament packs, and that's probably influenced from that early, Yu-Gi-Oh sort of sense that they had. All right, so that sort of brings us to the end of the news. But let's wrap up with a couple of things before we get going. So we have this little segment we're going to call the Rumor Mill. Tell us, and mill is funny because it's obviously a magic term, and I think this is a term that's used in there's other games as well. Do Parker and Tyler, do you guys use the term mill in your games?
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay, so mill is a term that's taken from a very early Magic card, Antiquities, I believe. That means to discard a card from the top of your deck to your, graveyard, discard pile, or whatever the appropriate term is in your particular game. So, our rumor mill today, I just want to know, is there any outstanding rumors or anything like that you guys want to talk about as far as your TCGs go? I'm going to start with you, Tyler.
Honestly, in terms of Pokemon, we kind of missed the mark on that. A few weeks ago, we had leaks, but now it's all officially confirmed, and there's really not a whole lot to go with on that at the moment.
Awesome. Have you guys got a new set announced post the sort of I guess what I call the base set or the inaugural set for
not yet, and I haven't heard of anything in terms of rumors of the new one yet. But obviously, there's going to be one a few months after that. Probably around August is usually the release set or like the release schedule for these kind of things. But we haven't really heard any news on it.
Okay, so you're saying around August, and at the moment we're coming into February.
Well, we have Scarlet and Violet is up in March.
Oh,
and then it's a few months later, be around the summer.
Okay, cool.
So then we'll get
sort of substance.
Exactly. Look at the first set. It's not the base set.
Okay, cool. We'll throw it to you. Yeah.
But yeah, no, other than that, really, there's not a whole lot of interesting rumors at the moment for Pokemon.
Okay, cool. Throw it to Nico. Any rumors or anything interesting going on there?
Well, a lot of the rumors surrounding Magic right now are about what they teased at with a certain card in the Phyrexia set, that being Atraxa. Now, Atraxa specifically mentioned something to do with card types, right? You get to look at the top cards of your deck and put one for each card type, and then it conveniently lists all the card types. So it says lands, artifacts, enchantments, creatures, planeswalkers, and battle, which isn't a card type. They have hinted at future card types before in past sets. Take Tarmogoyf, for example, who mentioned planeswalkers and tribal before planeswalkers and tribal were card types. So they're once again doing that. So most of the rumors are surrounding what is battle? What is battle going to be? What is this new card type going to do? A lot of people are expecting it's going to be something that sort of affects both sides of the field. Battle is in the name, so a lot of people assume it has something to do with combat as well, maybe stepping through steps depending on how combat goes. A lot of different rumors with that. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on what battle is going to be, and I'm excited to see.
I'm super excited as well.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to point on for Magic as well, and I've heard is a bit of a rumor. Obviously, this is coming from a place where my personal investment is the most. It seems that after Phyrexia, they have this sort of event story that seems going to change the storyline and stuff like that, which is Arch of the Machines.
Yes.
Pardon me. And the interesting thing that I've seen pushed on for 2023 is they're going to lead away from Planeswalker cards into Legendary. Now, the reason a lot of people are speculating that is because of an art displayed where, and as we mentioned before, there is a lot of creatures from different planes or different worlds all fighting on the one thing. And usually, the plane of travel is reserved for planeswalkers.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on that idea that they maybe will sort of consolidate the fact that you can have creatures from any plane on a single plane and sort of start leaning more into that IP?
Well, it definitely will be part of the next set, because a big part of what the Phyrexians are doing is that they control something called the World Tree. Their own version of the World Tree, which exists on a plane called Kaldheim. It eventually is a big tree with like 10 branches, all the little subworlds. The Phyrexians have their own version, lets them travel to all the different planes now. So this next set is kind of a big crossover event between planes. Not the next set, the one after that. The official artwork has stuff from Zendikar and Innistrad and Strixhaven all together. I think that it will lead to some crossover events in between planes and some lasting impact, but I don't believe that it's going to be a permanent thing.
So let me follow that up with another rumor that I've seen in the Magic world is that they are, and obviously this is something that's only unique to Magic and can't really happen in the games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, but they've started exploring this thing over the last couple of years called Universes Beyond.
Yep.
Where basically they're bringing in other properties. So far, the most significant one is obviously Transformers and Fortnite and Street Fighter. How, if they started to sort of move away from this idea of being sort of like a singular plane, independently made sort of set to this sort of like catch-all sort of thing, sort of like, Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Are, where it's like we can do whatever. How would you feel if they started to bring that in through this new event, narratively? Yeah.
Well, so there were some rumors that Universes Beyond stuff, sort of out-of-universe stuff, was going to become canon. Those were shut down by Mark Rosewater. We know that that's not going to be part of the real lore of Magic. I'd personally be a little disappointed if it all became one world, because I think part of what makes Magic special is the different worlds and the fact that they all are kind of separate from each other, and those few moments where things kind of interact between them are very interesting. But I think what we'll see is some crossover. If a certain two worlds collide, some people are going to walk over, some people are going to walk over the other way. They get separated in their own little worlds. I think we'll see little pockets of things from other worlds stuck in other worlds, more so than a interconnected multiverse.
So the interesting thing I want to pull out there is, I mentioned before that the artwork that was shown was a bunch of legendary creatures, and usually legendary creatures can't planeswalk. Do you think that this particular artwork is a focus on the legendary creatures narratively being able to planeswalk? Because legendary creatures through Wizards of the Coasts, whether it's their dismay or whatnot, because of the commander format, have become so much more significant over the last couple of years. So, say, you mentioned Jace before. Jace is a significant character in the world of Magic Gathering, but some of the other lesser-known planeswalkers are a little bit tougher to sort of, shoehorn into various stories. But who are really popular? Legendary creatures that have awesome effects. So they might want to start leaning into those and doing things like, as we learned in the pilot episode, again, linked in the description, might want to start doing retrains of these sort of legendary creatures and sort of speak to the idea that, we can start putting these characters, whether that's, Edgar Markov or whatever, some vampire, in a set about, not Innistrad, but instead Ixalan or something like that.
Yeah, I think we'll get a lot of that in March of the Machines, for sure. And I think that's sort of a big draw for that set for Commander players, is getting to see their favorite legendary creatures in a world outside of their own. As far as the lasting impact, I'm not sure, and that's hard to say right now. My personal hope is that most legendary creatures will kind of stay to their home world, but we'll never know what makes them money. You know what I mean?
And that's really the bottom line.
Yeah, that's the bottom line, yeah.
Okay, cool. Anything else to add about the rumor mill?
That's all for me.
All right, fantastic. So we're going to swing over to Yu-Gi-Oh! To end up.
All right, so what I've heard for rumors for Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the collector's rares for the tournament pack. So none of the cards for the tournament pack have been revealed yet, but there's somebody who has posted a picture of all the collector's rares. And the only reason I bring this up is because he did it before with the last tournament pack and was correct, so it kind of has some legs to it. So there's a Cash Tier card, a Tier Woman's card, and a Sprite card. And those are basically the three best archetypes in the game right now, so it's pretty exciting to get collector's rare versions of these powerful cards.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it for rumors that I have right now.
Interesting. And the interesting thing about rumors as far as speaking to Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you guys obviously see the Japanese cards not years, but like months before they get released here in English. So it's hard to have the sort of leaks and rumors that you would have for a game like Magic or whatnot.
Well, exactly.
Yeah. But obviously there's always going to be format changes and stuff like that as well. Okay, cool. So that wraps us up for the rumor mill, and we're going to go out on our signature way that we've sort of established so far, and that is crack, build, and play. Our experts are going to tell us, crack, which is their hottest card in their game at the moment, build, which is their combo or deck they're most excited about, and play, which is the strongest deck or emerging deck in the meta. And then we didn't talk a lot about gameplay in this episode overall, especially considering the first one. So I'm excited to jump into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it in reverse order. Let's start with Parker. Parker, what is your crack? What's the hottest card in Yu-Gi-Oh! At the moment?
So I wanted to bring up something that wasn't like, it's kind of like an answer to like the top deck. So tier elements is tier 0. So this is a card that can kind of help you answer tier elements. So the card is called Dimension Shifter. Mm-hmm. It is a hand trap that you use. You can use it on either player's turn. And what it basically says is any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So the whole thing that tier elements wants to do is send cards to the graveyard. So if everything gets banished, then they basically can't play. So they need to stop this card as much as possible because it'll just shut down their entire turn. Dimension Shifter is the crack this month.
Okay, sweet. Well, let's do it a bit different to last time. So let's talk about crack in the world of Magic. So what do you want to crack right now if you're opening packs of the latest sets of Magic, Nico?
Well, the typical knowledge would be Force of Will right now because it is, it's a hot card. You just got to reprint. It's going to go up in price again, obviously. Get them while you can, basically.
I mean, it's a card so influential that there is another card game named after that specific card.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's also, other Magic cards that are essentially named after, like Force of Negation, right? It's a free counter spell. Mm-hmm. It counters anything for the cost of one other card in your hand and one life. Mm-hmm. However, if we're talking about what the hottest and best card in metagame is, I would go with Murktide Regent, as it is in the best decks right now in Legacy and Modern, which is the base of the deck named after it. It is, basically a red-blue spell deck. You bang that thing out as fast as you can, huge dragon, kill him. Pretty a lot of interaction, stop your opponents from having fun and kill them with the big guy.
And that's the funnest thing about Magic.
Exactly,
right? Big guy.
Yeah. So that would kind of be the hottest card, I would say, right now in Magic in general, but the one you want to open is Force of Will.
Okay.
Get them when you can, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's not something that they reprint a ton of.
Exactly.
They have reprinted a couple times over the most recent years. I think it was a Modern Masters or something like that.
Yeah, Eternal Masters, and I believe also another Master set, but I can't quite remember which one.
But it's always a format staple and where it's legal, and new arts for it are always very exciting.
Yeah.
Alright, so let's throw it over to Pokemon. What is the crack for Pokemon this month?
Well, for this month, I think the crack is definitely guaranteeing a V-Star, the Alt-Art in Crown Zenith. That card is absolutely gorgeous. Definitely look it up, and it's also worth, for Pokemon, relatively big money, so people want it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pokemon does seem to have a bit of a premium because of the collectors as well. But tell us, what is its impact on the table?
Well, guaranteeing a V-Star is a card we already have from Lost Origin. Right now, it's not the hottest in the meta. It kind of fell out of favor. I think post-rotation it's going to make a resurgence for sure. But in terms of this is a collector's set, right? So for collector's crack, that is the card to get for sure. The Arceus, there's also an Arceus V-Star reprint Alt-Art that is in the same vein. It's gold. It's this volcano scene. It's really, really pretty. That's also a fairly good ball.
Yeah, Pokemon does amazing work with that. Sometimes that art is just absolutely unparalleled. Alright, so let's swing it back the other way, starting with you, Tyler. What build do you want? So tell us about what deck or combo you are most excited about in the Pokemon meta at the moment.
So in terms of Pokemon meta at the moment, my interest is still in the stocks for sure. It's just a toolbox kind of style deck. You just have an answer for different situations. It's very flexible, very skill intensive, lots of decision making. In terms of future cards, if we're talking Scarlet and Violet, there's a Bennett EX. This is a card that, to those who are not familiar, it's called item locking. They can't play items from their hand, which is a big deal in Pokemon. You play a lot of items. So I think that card is going to be very interesting. I'm not sure it'll have a huge impact on the meta, but I want to play with it for sure.
You want to try and build around the item locks and stuff?
Exactly.
Control players.
No one's having fun.
Alright. None of them playing you then, huh? Alright, so let's swing over to Nico. What do you got for build? What's going on in the Magic meta
Yeah.
that you're excited about?
Well, a little bit of a preface here. I want to talk about two different deck archetypes to start off.
Please do.
Infect is a deck archetype where you play Infect creatures. Your goal is to deal 10 damage with Infect, or deal poison counters, right? You want to get 10
so
poison
we're counting
counters.
up from
Counting
10 rather than down. 20.
Exactly, right? And you play small, evasive creatures with Infect. You pump them up with pump spells, try to kill them as early as you can. Another deck archetype is called Storm. There's an ability called Storm where you copy the spell for each other spell that's been cast this turn. There's Grape Shot, that deals 1 damage. Your goal is to, play 20 other spells before you play Grape Shot and kill them with Grape Shot. Spells that make mana, you have things that make your spells cheaper, card draw, all that good stuff. There's a new card in the Phyrexia set called Venerated Rot Priest that every time it gets targeted by one of your own things, your opponents get a poison counter. And there are Storm cards that can target your own things.
Mm-hmm.
So people want to sort of mesh together two deck archetypes that often get labeled as unfun and degenerate into an unholy monster, which I think is awesome. Just the idea of Infect Storm, two decks that no one's excited to play against ever.
Sign me up for that one.
Yeah. Will it be good? Who knows? I don't really think so, but I think it will be fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a really unique thing. And that's the point of the build. I want to hear about what people are excited about in their metas that aren't specifically the big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're going to swing over to Pokemon here. Parker, what do you got for us? What are you excited about in the world of Yu-Gi-Oh, whether that's a deck or a combo or whatever?
So these new cards that I mentioned before, the Gold Pride cards, there's not that many cards for it, but I think it'll fit nicely in a punk deck. So basically both of the archetypes, they synchro summon. They're both like level 3 usually, so you can do some Xyz plays. And the Gold Pride basically needs you to have less life points than your opponent to activate them. The punk cards take life to activate their effects. So you can go into the punk cards, and that'll give you access to all the Gold Pride cards.
Mm.
And then you just get a bunch of synchro summons. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I really like the punk deck. I played it a lot whenever it came out. So I think mixing it with Gold Pride is going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So punk is an archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's basically, it's based on 4 different kinds of art styles in Japan. It's really cool. There's like music style, there's like an art style, and like that's what all the like art is based off of, and the naming of the actual cards. It's a really cool archetype. I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out. I've not seen it just yet. All right, so we've got our last little thing about little exit segment right now, which is play, and that is what is your opinion on the strongest deck in your current games meta? So I'm going to start. I'm going to wedge you right in the middle. We'll go with Nico first. What do you got as far as the strongest deck in your meta? Speaking specifically to non-casual formats.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to be talking about Legacy specifically today. Legacy is a Magic format that has all cards from all sets with some bans. This notably includes sets made for casual play, including the recently sort of D&D crossover sets where you get to venture into the dungeon, where you get this little side card piece that you get to go through all the steps of the little dungeon, you go through the room, fun casual play. But a big deck right now in Legacy that was the most played deck briefly, and it's kind of weighing back, we'll see where it settles, is a mono-white initiative deck, because you take the initiative, enter the dungeon. That's why this pretty much came out of nowhere into Legacy, a mono-white deck that is killing with creatures and dungeon, which you can't interact with, because it's outside of the game.
Yeah,
it's a whole other little map that you're exploring through that you can't stop when it starts.
For initiative,
exactly,
the dungeon or
a lot of people are very angry at this. A lot of people are blaming the bad design space for casual games affecting competitive games. We've seen that type of thing happen before with cards like True Name Nemesis, a card made for multiplayer where you choose a player, and that player, then it gets protection from that player in a 1v1 game. You choose your opponent, and it has protection from everything your opponent can do. It was legal in 1v1 formats as well, and it's kind of a similar thing. It is a little bit on the decline now because, the red-blue Murktide decks are still better in a lot of people's minds. The, Delver of Secrets, Dragon's Rage Channeler, all that good stuff. But it is certainly a very interesting deck that I don't think Legacy's ever seen anything quite like it.
And it's so hard. Now, Magic the Gathering changes so much over the last couple of years. I mean, we had things like people freaking out about the most recent unset, which for those who don't understand is a sort of like a gimmicky sort of like fun set that had cards that were able to impact Legacy. Thankfully, and in this particular specific case, it was about stickering other people's cards and stuff like that. That's a whole drama that we missed because we didn't start early enough. But I'm sure that could have been 20 minutes of conversation.
Yeah, that happened in between these two episodes, our first and our second, or first and zero. I would have had some words.
Absolutely. It's been crazy. So I'm so interested to hear about the fact that these sort of more, for lack of a better term, I'm going to use the term innovative design spaces are having an impact on these games where then the point of them is not to have that cool casual sort of interaction, you know?
Exactly.
It's not for like, oh, this is an exciting gimmick. No, it's for serious play at the highest power level possible. And to see that bleeding through, I think, is an issue for Wizards of the Coast moving forward. But nonetheless.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and that is my play.
All right, so we're going to go over to Tyler right now for Pokemon's play. What's going on in the meta of Pokemon that you think is the best deck going on?
Well, I don't think a whole lot has changed since the last play from the pilot episode. Lugia V-Star, still very, very strong. It's only one that's been, I believe, there's been 3 regionals and Asia Open, which is a big tournament that uses the standard, non-Japanese standard format. And it's only one, come out on top in one regional as first place, but it's almost always relevant in the top 8.
Do the other two get dethroned by the same deck?
Well, Palkia kind of got dethroned by Lugia. Mew is still very relevant. It's definitely tier 1, but Lugia is still kind of tier 0. The format is still just very much revolving around how do you beat Lugia.
Okay, interesting. And is there a good answer for that?
People have come up with some really, really interesting and innovative plays, and I like that about that. There's some really, really interesting decks that are not very fun to play against, but they do a really good job beating Lugia.
That's the interesting thing about tier 0 meta. If it can be done, there's always a room for people to sort of target it. It puts a big target on its back, and that always brings out interesting, obviously the Magic example is Necropotence, and then obviously Turbostasis and stuff like that. There's a whole history we're not going to get into right now. But it's absolutely fabulous to see that there are people that are really determined to dethrone this rather than play it.
Exactly.
Absolutely. All right, so last but not least, we are going to go to Yu-Gi-Oh! For the play. Tell us, is there something other than tier 0 going on in the meta at the moment?
No, it's still tier 1. It's always tier 1. Even in the OCG, they did a nuke ban list. They basically hit everything to 1 or banned their main cards, and the deck still topped a tournament. I don't understand. This deck is ridiculous. But just to bring something else up, I talked about Cashiers already. There's a deck that can kind of contend with tier elements. I don't think they're going to be a super meta choice, but it'll be meta for going against them, but I don't think it's going to be more powerful than the tier elements. I think people are still going to default to tier elements whenever they go to big tournaments and want to actually do well. So that's pretty much it for me. Just catch tier and tier elements. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you. So tier elements seems to have this big looming shadow of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta at the moment. Have you, as a Yu-Gi-Oh! Player, I know you're relatively new by comparison to 20 odd years. Do you have any experience or knowledge of any other time where this has been such a dominant format for the game?
I haven't played in any formats that are like this, but I've heard about them before. I don't think any of them have been quite as bad as this, to be honest. This has been a long time of just tier elements winning every tournament. Nothing else has been even really close. You'll see the tournament breakdowns and somebody got top with this deck, but they didn't win the tournament with that deck. It's still tier elements winning every deck pretty much.
They got close though.
Yeah. But there has been other tier 0 formats before that are similar to this, but I'm not sure if they've been as bad as tier elements right now.
And that might speak to what I mentioned before about somebody saying that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a hard thing to be playing in the moment.
It's definitely a difficult game. I understand why people would say that.
Absolutely. All right, so that wraps us up for the show. I appreciate everybody joining us, and I want to just say thank you so much to my 3 experts on the panel. Again, we have our Pokemon expert,
Tyler.
Our Magic expert,
Nico.
Our Yu-Gi-Oh! Expert,
Parker.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for joining me. It's a goodbye from me. Goodbye from you guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
And you're out.
And remember, you guys, obviously, if you guys are listening, please check out our pilot episode. Again, it's going to be linked in the description. Also, check out our brand new Discord as well, something that we have not done before. And I'm excited to sort of get a community going. If you have anything you want to discuss about this episode, find the TCG SCOOPS. TCG SCOOPS tab in that particular Discord and discuss it. By all means, bring it up. I would love to stimulate conversation between players of the top 3 TCGs, because we are all part of a family. We are really all part of a TCG community, regardless of whether we see it or not. And the goal of this show is to bridge that gap. So check us out. Again, you can also find a bunch of other stuff linked in the description that includes the Booster Pack Network on social media, myself, Rands on social media, and a bunch of our other shows as well. So thank you so much, and until next time, remember, keep shuffling.